The first thing I do before editing any photo is to turn on the histogram warnings. What this means is that when there's any black pixels, we'll get a blue warning, and when there's any white pixels totally overexposed, we'll get a red warning like so. We want to try and avoid these warnings, and you can also see when that triangle is lit, that means that there is some underexposed, some black pixels down here. The next thing I do is I go and open up the exposure, bring the highlights all the way down, the shadows all the way up, and then the whites up until we start to see some reds, like so, and the blacks down until we start to see some blue, like so. Then I skip to the bottom, turn on profile corrections, take the vignette in a little bit so we make it slightly darker at the corners, and then add a bit of dehaze, which is what I tend to do to my photos. I'll then go back up, and if there's any exposure warnings like so, I will make sure that they disappear by adjusting the white and black sliders. Sometimes it's okay to have a little bit of black though. Then I'll add the contrast back in. And you can see, it's a quick comparison here, the difference that is made to the image. We haven't changed the exposure at all, we've just opened up the dynamic range. And you can see up here, this is what the image looks like now, but if we reset this, you can see the dynamic range is much smaller. There's much less in the bright side of the image. So when I go in now and I want to add some saturation to the aqua to make the water stand out a little bit, that's going to make quite a significant difference to that water. However, if I haven't actually opened up the histogram and I do that same adjustment, you can see it really doesn't have much of an effect, which is why we always open up the dynamic range and the histogram first. Did you know that you can edit the same photo twice in Lightroom without having to lose any of the initial adjustments you made to the photo? To do that, go to the toolbar down here, right-click, and then go to Create Virtual Copy. That will give you two versions of the same photo. Only one file will remain inside your folder, but you can now edit it twice. So let's say, for example, I want to see what this looks like in black and white. I can then go up and make an adjustment to the black and white, and perhaps I can also change the black and white mix. And I can now see what it's going to look like in black and white without having to lose any of those adjustments that I worked so hard for in the initial color edit. And I can just do a quick comparison back and forth to see which one I prefer. In this case, I actually really like the black and white, but I'm allowed to make these quick adjustments to see for myself just by creating a virtual copy. When you're making edits to photos in Lightroom, it's rare that you actually want to edit the entire photo at once, and the same goes for sharpening. But most people don't realize there's a hidden preview inside Lightroom to see the area that you're actually sharpening, and that's by holding down the Alt key. So if I hold down the Alt key and I click on the masking slider, it's going to show me that currently the whole image, the white area, is being sharpened. As I move this across, you start to see that I'm sharpening less of the image, but more specific areas, such as the outlines of rocks and the sky. And as I move this all the way to the edge, you can now see that I'm only going to be sharpening the outlines of that piece of ice. So when I go to adjust the sharpness slider, I can move it much further without having a dramatic effect across the whole image. It's only sharpening the area that I want it to sharpen. If I turn this all the way up to 150, and the masking all the way down, the whole image is going to be sharpened and the effect is going to be nowhere near as powerful. That's why it's so important to know these little techniques like using the masking preview. Did you know that you can effectively change the perspective of your image using the transform section in the develop module? What this allows us to do is take an image that's taken from above and make it look as if we shot that image from the side. And it's very simple, just a click of a button. So I'm going to select vertical here, and you can see all of those lines that were initially diagonal, converging far, far into the distance towards the center of the frame, they now become vertical lines. And that allows us to really change and improve the composition of this image just with the click of a button. So let's do that again. And back on here. I know which one I prefer, and it really makes a big difference to be able to do this after you've taken the photo inside Lightroom, because previously you'd have to spend thousands of dollars on specialized lenses to get the same result. It's possible to make changes to just small parts of the image rather than the image as a whole. So if I was to turn up the exposure on this image, you'll see the whole image gets brighter. However, if I use a graduated filter from up here, and I apply it like so, first of all, you'll see the area that it's being applied to. Anything that's pink is going to be affected by whatever I do in this section here. The other section is not going to be. And you're seeing this because I have the Show Selected Mask Overlay option on. I'll turn that off. And now I can make adjustments to the exposure, and it's only going to affect that part of the frame. So for example, maybe I want to add some dehaze and a little bit of clarity to the image. It's only affecting the sky, and I can show you a preview by turning that off and on. You'll find that your image will be much more powerful if you don't edit the whole image at once, but rather choose specific parts of the frame that require attention, and you can do that using the graduated filter. The great thing about shooting in RAW is that we're left with an uncompressed image file, and we can make minor and major adjustments to it later without destroying the image. So what I want to show you in this photo is how to get a dark blue sky. So if you have a look at this photo, it kind of looks like it's just an overcast day. And the reason for that is that we're exposing for this foreground area, which is a shadow. It's going to blow out the sky. So how do we get that back? Well, we go over to the luminance sliders down here, and we know that the sky is blue, so we're going to adjust the luminance of the blue. So what is luminance? Well, it is how light or dark a color is. If I want a light blue, that's going to do nothing to the sky except blow it out. However, if we want a dark blue, that's going to make the blue that's hidden in that sky stand out quite significantly. Just look at that as a comparison from nothing to a dark blue. Suddenly, we've taken our photo with an overcast sky and made it a bright and sunny day by moving just one slider. Did you know that there is a quick and easy way to match exposures across a series of photos? So I took this image as part of an HDR image. The first photo is correctly exposed, the second one is 2 stops underexposed, and the third one is 2 stops overexposed. But let's say I want to go back and I want to match those exposures. I select the 3 images I'd like to include. Then I select the image from those 3 that I want to base the exposures off. And I can go up to Settings and then go to Match Total Exposures. And as you can see from the preview down here, as I go across to the next photo, you're going to now see that this is 2 stops overexposed from the original image, and the next one is 2 stops underexposed. So that's an easy way to match exposures from multiple photos in just a couple of clicks. One of my favorite, and frankly one of the most powerful tools inside Adobe Lightroom, is the Dehaze tool. It's tucked away all the way at the bottom here in the Effects section, right above Camera Calibration. And what it will effectively do is if we turn this up, it will remove some of the haze from the sky. So in the background here, this is quite far away, it's probably at least a few miles. Through the sky on an overcast, wet day like this, you're going to have some haze in the sky. Even on a sunny day, you find a lot of haze. It's to do with the pressure, I believe, in the atmosphere. So if you want to remove that haze, you can adjust this dehaze slider, and it will make your photos much richer. Look at how the blue comes out in this much more powerfully. So I haven't made any other adjustments to this image except for some basic adjustments up here. I haven't done anything to the HSL sliders, but as I turn up the dehaze, that blue becomes richer, the background becomes more detailed, and the sky is more dramatic. A very simple tool, and it's exclusive to Adobe Lightroom CC. This is another feature that's exclusive to Adobe Lightroom CC, and it's called Boundary Wrap. It's for when you create a panorama inside Lightroom. So when we create panoramas, we're left with this outline, this white outline, where there's no extra image to add to the corners and the sides. So what we do is we use Boundary Wrap, and that will push everything into the top, the sides, and the corners of the photos. So you can see as I gradually go across here, the preview is going to change, and the image is going to stretch out, giving us a larger image to use later on. Now, it's very rare that I go all the way to 100% on this, because sometimes you can start to see the horizon bends a little bit as it's done here. But quite reasonably, you can use around 50%, maybe 70% if it's a good image and it's been it lends itself to the boundary wrap. But you can see you have so much more image to play with, and there's less work to do later on if you want to transform the perspective of the image too. Hey, thanks for watching the 9 Lightroom tweaks that most amateur photographers miss. If you're interested in learning about Lightroom photography, I've just released a brand new course on it. It's right below on this page, and it's called Effortless Editing for Lightroom. If you'd like to transform your photography with a few simple tweaks inside Lightroom, then this is definitely a course you want to check out. It's on sale now for a very limited time, and when it closes, it's not going to be open again for a few more months. So check it out now while it's still available. Thanks for watching.